Okay, I'd like to call to order tonight's Charter Township of Oxford Planning Commission regular meeting, Thursday, March 13th, 2025. If we could start the meeting by standing and paying respects to the flag.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Item number 3, can we note the roll?
Noted, there is a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 4, approval of tonight's agenda. One note, we are going to need to make an adjustment to, is it 12B? Or where do we need to add that to appoint
It would be under new business,
under new business?
so 9C.
9C, okay. Okay. Somebody would like to make a motion for the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
With the 9C adjustment?
Yes, with an IC adjustment.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second to adopt tonight's agenda, adding 9C. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Item number 5, conflict of interest, ex parte. Does anybody have anything to bring up or discuss? Okay, seeing none. Number 6, approval of the minutes, Planning Commission regular meeting, February 27, 2025.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to move make a motion to approve the minutes from February 27th, 2025.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries.
Mr. Chair, could you please make sure your microphone is turned on? Thank you very much.
Now that my mic is on. All right, number 7, public comment for items not scheduled for public hearing or on tonight's agenda. Seeing nobody from the public, we'll move to number 8, commissioners' comments. Does anybody have anything they would like to bring up, discuss, questions?
Mr. Chair, last meeting I was not able to attend. I'd like to, I talked to Mateo to go through the draft.
Okay.
Master plan, and I have a few notes and comments I'd like to add to that.
Okay. We can get to that, or you want to do them?
If you want, when I do my planning update at the end of the evening,
We can add it.
are you talking about going through some notes now?
Oh, no. I'd like to, as we talked earlier, I'd like to go through them, provide them to you on Monday. So just a few.
Yeah.
I want to go through the draft, see if there's anything that, from the 2019 that should be potentially carried into the 2024, 2025 master plan.
Okay.
That's all.
Yep.
I think it's minor stuff, but there's just some good wording in the 19 that I'd like to carry forward.
Okay.
Okay. Anything, anybody else? Okay, seeing none. We will move into number 9, public hearing and actions. 9A, we have a petition to rezone parcel ID 0426 353 028 970 South Lapeer and 0426 353 029 990 South Lapeer from office to C2 general commercial. Is the petitioner ready, or do you want to start your stuff?
If it's whichever order is fine, I would say if you want to kind of get our feedback, Jim's feedback, and then
Sure.
we can kind of go from there.
Which Jim?
Allow the applicant, yeah. Both.
You know which one, Mr. Bailey.
Pull this up here. Danielle, do they have to make a motion to open the public hearing?
No public hearing is after your review.
Okay, yep, sorry.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, good evening, Mateo Pasalacqua. We, Carlisle Wortman Associates, we're the planning consultants for the township. So this evening, one of the items under the public hearing is the review of an application to rezone 2 lots in the northwest corner of Drainer and Lapeer from office to commercial 2 or C2. One parcel has a vacant bank on site, the other has a single-family home. When combined, the parcels are approximately 1.76 acres. If the rezonings were approved this evening, the bank lot would conform to C2, but the single-family house lot would not. If they were combined after the rezoning, they would meet the C2 requirements as far as lot size, frontage, things of that nature. Properties that surround the parcels are zoned office, C2, and single-family residential. We did provide a list of permitted and special uses in the review for the Planning Commission. Though the applicant did indicate on the application that their primary interest in the rezoning would be to potentially construct a one-story multi-tenant retail center with a drive-through. Tonight's conversation is about C2. Is C2 appropriate for this site based on the criteria in the ordinance and based on the feedback from the public? And so while that information is there and you are welcome to ask questions about it, your consideration tonight is really about C2 over the office zoning. The process for this is that the Planning Commission would recommend an approval or denial, and then it would go to the Township Board for final approval or denial. When we look at the site, naturally feature-wise, the site's already been developed, or the sites have already been developed. They're relatively flat with no major wetland, woodland, or water bodies on the property. So there aren't any major natural feature considerations. Whenever we're looking at a rezoning, the master plan is a very important consideration. When you look at the master plan, at least your current 2019 master plan, the future land use designation for these 2 sites is office service and village residential. The back portion of the triangle lot has 2 designations on it, the office frontage along Lapeer and then the residential along the back. These designations don't anticipate commercial activities in the future at the site. However, we did want to note that the 2019 plan was adopted obviously before the COVID-19 pandemic and didn't anticipate, I guess, that global of a shift in office use throughout the world, really. So with that in mind, and given that the township is nearing completion of the adoption of an updated master plan, we thought it fair to consider what that draft future land use map calls for. And currently, while not adopted, the future land use draft calls for this area to be a mixed use designation, which contemplates any mixture of commercial, retail, residential on the site. It's not apples to apples retail, but it indicates that at least in draft form, the township is shifting away a little bit from the strictly office designation. And so as it relates to the master plan, again, current master plan is 2019, future land use map draft kind of contemplates a shift away from these office uses. When we look at the development potential for the site, I stated earlier, if it's rezoned, all of the permitted and special land uses in C2 under the right circumstances could go on the site. Again, when we look at C2 and all the various uses, it's a pretty broad array. And so there are uses, you're allowed to do a 60,000 square foot retail center. That's not happening on these sites. So when you kind of look at those uses, you have to kind of put it in context of what could reasonably go on the site. But that's why we provide that list, is so you can understand if this goes C2, these are all the things that could happen here, at least the ones reasonably that would fit on the site. Again, on the application, there was a statement regarding the interest in developing a single-story multi-tenant retail center with a drive-through. That use is permitted on the site. There are some additional standards that come with that type of a development. That's really just a context of a note. Again, we don't have a site plan to review this evening, but from a use perspective, what they have indicated is permitted on the site. Yeah, sorry. In my notes, I rambled on about that point a little bit more than what needs repeating. But again, it's a consideration of C2 at the site. So from there, your ordinance provides specific guidelines in considering a rezoning for a map amendment. So there's 2 types. There's a map amendment, which is like a zoning change, and then a text amendment, which is actually things we'll be talking about later in the evening. So with that, I'll kind of go through our review for each of those standards, some information that we cited for consideration, and then from there, Planning Commission can invite either Jim up to talk next. So the first standard is consistent with the master plan and consideration for current conditions. We kind of went through the master plan conversation, 2019, the current draft. And current market conditions would lean more towards like a retail, commercial type use than necessarily an office use. Compatibility with environmental features and all uses in the proposed zone. We don't cite any major environmental challenges in the land being able to support C2 developments as it relates to the lot size. Compatibility with uses in proposed district, adjacent uses, environment, density, traffic, aesthetics, infrastructure, and influence on property values. Properties located around that intersection are C2 as well. C2 is typically found in the township along 24, and in other communities, similar zoning types are found along the major thoroughfares. They're attracted to traffic. Office uses, the current zoning is definitely a less intense use, but are also in pretty low demand. You know, again, as reference, not that anybody needs reminding, but the site currently has a vacant bank on it that I believe has been vacant for approximately 2 years. Capacity for utilities and services, the fire department and engineering haven't cited any major concerns as it relates to the C2 rezoning. Street capacity and traffic, the uses allowed under C2 offer a wide array of potential traffic generation. This particular intersection of Lapeer and Drainer is one of the busiest and one of the most hazardous in the community, and that's no secret. I'm not blowing the top off of anybody here by saying that. We all know that. But because we are a township and that is Lapeer Road and Drainer Road, any project that is seeking site plan approval is going to need to get MDOT and RCOC approval to do so. We can't speak necessarily to what those requirements or comments would be, but we do cite it as a pretty strong level of oversight in getting things approved at that corner. Demand for C2 and the overall presence of the district in the community. C2 again is prevalent along Lapeer Road. That's probably where it's most appropriate. Retail occupancy within the township is strong. I mean, again, retail is slowly crawling its way back from COVID, but it does, there is a strong market along Lapeer Road. Recent community feedback from the master plan process has indicated that residents are in favor of more retail options in the community. The proposed lots will conform to proposed zoning standards. Again, as we talked about, if the bank lot would conform to C2, the house lot would not. We are highly recommending that should the rezoning go through, that the lots be combined. I do believe that would be the intent of the applicant, but I'll let them speak to that. The proposed district is more appropriate than others. C2 is in a higher demand than office. Again, citing it's conducive along Lapeer Road and major thoroughfares. C1 is another retail option that the community has. It's more geared towards smaller boutique mom and pop style shops. And it's more restrictive on what uses can go on the site. Residential would be a challenge here just from access to the roads and traffic, noise, things of that nature. And industrial, the lots aren't large enough for industrial, and that would be too close to spot zoning. There's no basis for industrial around the community.
Can I ask you a question too?
Yeah, you gotta ask him.
Sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned C2 is more restrictive or less restrictive than C1?
It's less restrictive. You can do everything in C2 that you can do in C1. You cannot do everything in C1 that you can do in C2. C2 is again a smaller scale style retail, more mom and pop.
So reading through the notes or the permitted uses, you know, things like a drive-through restaurant, fast food establishment, those types of things could be allowed, right? And we know that a drive-through is being asked for, right?
It's indicated on the application.
It's indicated on the
And you don't have a site plan, but yes, it's indicated on the application.
So as it relates to traffic, you said MDOT and our Oakland County Road Commission would be going through that. You know, of course, one of the things we talk about every week is traffic, or every other week when we meet is traffic and the concerns at that corner. Do you know what the process might be, what it might look like that the Road Commission would go through, or MDOT, as they receive this information from the applicant, and how they would look at this proposal and look at how traffic might or need to be controlled? You know, I look at this and think northbound and Lapeer traffic, past Drainer, going north past Drainer, if there's an entrance into the site, that a driver may wanna turn left, you know, at that intersection. That could be, it appears that could be a pretty big problem with cars, you know, flying up through that intersection. So I'm just trying to understand, you know, what that process might look like, from a traffic flow standpoint.
Yeah, and I can't speak to the exact stages or review process that MDOT or RCOC would go through when reviewing a site like this. I mean, you bring up very valid points about the potential design, and how that might work. I know that it is more typical, and again, Jim Sharp may be able to offer more insight on this, and maybe even the applicant could offer more insight on this. It's more likely when an RCOC and MDOT review is not necessarily to come out and say, no, you cannot do this. It's more likely to come out to say, if you want to do this, you're adding this, you're going to do that. Like, it's more of a trying to mitigate as many of the negative effects as possible and requiring the development to do those things, as opposed to saying, you can't do this, there's just too much traffic. That's my.
Perhaps a decel lane on
Correct.
southbound M24 before a person turns right into the.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the addition of shoulders or extensions or decel lanes. You know, sometimes you can make the stipulation as far as traffic exiting the property, no left turns, you know, things of that nature.
When you say you, who's you?
Well, we could be in a position to require that of the development.
Okay.
Again,
But that's not, that's when we actually get a site plan and we look at
Correct,
specifics. Right now, it's C2, yes or no.
correct.
Okay.
And it's, I'm
Right.
sorry.
And just to clarify, drive-through, I mean, my first thought is, you know, like a big one in McDonald's or something like that, but, I mean, it could be a pharmacy with one of the little bottles that goes out and back, it could be a tropical smoothie type, so I mean, drive-through could mean,
Yeah, when it
Okay.
comes to the concern of traffic, right, we kind of go back to that list of all the things that could reasonably exist there and kind of the wide array of traffic that they would generate.
Right.
The challenge with 24 is the traffic is what makes it desirable to certain uses, right? Like demographically, they're looking for that kind of traffic to support the businesses. So it's going to draw them to the traffic, whereas we're on the flip side saying like, okay, we get that. We also understand this is a troubled intersection and we're not looking to make it worse. So the traffic part of it is, again, something where we can't really get into the super nitty gritty of it until we have a site plan to review. But in general, if there are some uses, if there's so many uses in C2 where there's a unanimous feeling that is going to overburden the system and things of that nature, then the planning commission could consider that when making their decision.
Mr. Chairman, is this time for questions?
I'm almost done. I mean, unless,
Are you
yeah,
running
let's,
track?
let's get through the rest of yours and then
Okay.
we'll do.
all right, where was I? Oh, okay. Doesn't create spot zoning. Again, all other properties at the intersection are C2. If it was rezoned, it would be adjacent to the office to the north, but C2 and office next to each other aren't necessarily conflicting land uses. The application has not been submitted less than a year. You can't submit it within a year of each other, so this is a fresh application. There has been no application for these rezonings in over a year. And other criteria determined by the board and PC regarding health, safety, welfare, public, private investment, overall engagement of the community. Here it was, our notes were basically just short that the bank is vacant. The longer it's vacant, it will deteriorate. And that in and of itself could present a challenge to property values and safety within the community. Again, banks are decreasing their physical footprint, and there is not a lot of demand for new office development. Again, these are considerations for the market. In summary, we feel as though the rezoning would be compatible with market demands. The location does seem conducive with C2 uses. There is a conflict with the 2019 master plan, and we discussed the office service designation, but the current draft does contemplate this area moving away from a strict office service use. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, happy to hand over the podium to the next folks, however you want to go.
You had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So when was the last study done on the demand for office usage?
I couldn't speak to that, even like a local context.
I mean, even overall. So there's a large demand now, being 4 years removed from COVID, for people to return to office space. Is that changing the demand? So that's why I asked the question of when's the last study been done? Because as we're seeing the push back to the office, does that actually drive up the demand? And are we behind as a government entity, not catching the market as it's changing or has already changed? That's my concern there. So I'm just curious. I know we're making statements about there's not as much demand for office space anymore, but I'm questioning that, I guess, to some degree, just to understand better about when our study was done and if that's still true today.
I can't speak to a study specific to Oxford Township as it relates to office use. More or less can speak from just experience working in the metro area and the lack of interest that we're seeing in it. I'm not discounting what you're saying. The rhetoric of return to office is there. What the reality looks like numerically, I couldn't speak to.
Okay. So is the statements being made in our packet tonight based on Oxford Township then, as being less demand for office space at this time?
I think it's really a statement about looking at the region as a whole, but then also looking at these parcels as zoned as office. And even if there was demand for office, would you see it there in the essence of the bank being potentially removed and not leased again as a bank, and the single family house? Again, a lot of the single family homes along that stretch have been converted to office space. So I can't really speak to the feasibility of that one property being that. But the statements that we're making are, I would say, more or less based again on a regional context, but also taking into account what type of office space you currently offer, and is there interest in new office space coming in? I mean, based on our work at the Township Hall, we haven't garnered a lot of it. I'm not going to discount that it's not there. I just haven't seen it.
Okay. I did look through the packet to see what type of designations fall under C2. Under the current office zoning, do medical offices apply in that zoning currently?
I believe so. I can double check.
Yeah, I'd have to too. I can look while we're talking. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Question?
Yeah, question, so would the applicant's proposed land use apply under the proposed mixed-use zoning in the master plan?
It's difficult to say. I mean, mixed use like just rolling off of your tongue indicates that you're looking at two uses on the same site, right? So there's horizontal mixed use where you have two separate buildings on the same site that function differently. One's commercial, one's retail, or whatever it might be. There's vertical where it's the same building, no apartments above. I would say that commercial alone under the future land use designation would be one of the weaker uses for it, that there would not need to be some other element that comes with that use. But I do believe that the future land use as it's drafted now would allow for strictly commercial uses on the site, but maybe a mixture of what those uses would be. Does that make sense?
Okay, would it allow for drive-throughs and
I don't know the drive.
beverages and things like that?
Usually your future land use designations don't go into that much detail. I don't believe that those words are cited specifically, but I don't know that any specific uses like drilled down that deep are listed in the future land use designation under the current draft.
Sure.
Isn't that the last residence of that area that's not commercial?
That's one thing I would offer the applicant. I do believe the house functions as a home right now.
So yes. I think it's a rental property?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be a legal nonconformity.
Any other questions? Okay. You all set? Yeah. All right. We'll let Mr. Sharp come up and then we'll go through the whole.
Do you have added order, Jim? or-
No, I'm good. I'm good. Good evening, good evening, Commissioners. Jim Sharp, Sharp Engineering, Township Engineer. When we're looking at a rezoning, again, we'll let Mateo really dive deep into the uses and so forth. I'm looking at it more from a infrastructure type of standpoint. So my letter that's in your packet is pretty short. I'm just gonna hit it real quick. With regards to the sanitary sewer, both parcels are located in the current sanitary sewer district. Obviously, they're both serviced by sewer right now. So there wouldn't be any problem should this be rezoned to C2. Same with the water. Both parcels are in the township's water district, and so they're connected, so there wouldn't be any problems with additional, with the water capacity there. Storm sewer, again, we don't have a site plan in front of us. There is a pond that exists on the triangular shaped portion to the west, but whatever they come up with, whether they do a pond or obviously today, a lot of people do that underground stormwater detention because they run out of space and they need it. But again, that would be something that would be dealt with during the engineering phase. With regards to pavements, and I know there were some discussions regarding the accesses. Again, MDOT on M24, Road Commission on the south side. There may or may not have been a traffic study done. I don't wanna, maybe I'll let the applicant bring that up. I don't know that we need to get into that, because again, that's not really a part of the rezoning itself. But MDOT and Road Commission are certainly gonna require some improvements on those roadways. And with regards to safety paths, there's current safety paths on both the M24 side and on the Road Commission on the Drainer Road side as well. So, in summary, we believe that there's sufficient infrastructure to service a C2 development on the property. Should it be rezoned? Obviously, moving forward, site plan, engineering drawings, and all that, we would have to work through those. Should it be approved, or should a site plan be submitted to move forward? So, any questions, really? And this, I know traffic's the big one for you guys, and the rest of the infrastructure's there. So I will turn it back to Mr. Bailey.
I have a question.
Sure.
Just came. So, if we decided to rezone this property, and the road commission took a look at it, especially after the site plan is approved, and they noticed that there would be increased volume of traffic due to this business being there, or these businesses in this case, right? At that point, would road commission then maybe start looking at mitigating some of the issues that are existing today on the Drainer and M24 intersection, do you believe, from your,
When you say mitigate,
so any kind of safety hazard?
yeah, exactly.
They look at our that intersection there as being hazardous, and if we're gonna add additional traffic volumes based on the new businesses that are gonna be there, I'm just asking, in your opinion, do you feel they would look at that and then start to maybe look at mitigating some of the hazardous?
Correct. As Mateo indicated, we have no jurisdiction over this, and generally are not going to say, there's an existing business there, they're not gonna say, oh, we're not gonna give you a driveway. There will likely be one driveway on M24, and currently there's two driveways on Drainer Road. They'll probably ask them to reduce that to one driveway. And then there could be possible extensions of turn lanes, whether it be a right turn in or extending the left turn lane on Drainer Road, and then I think it goes into a full right turn lane there on southbound M24. Maybe they make them extend that a little bit. So there will have to be some improvements made. I'm pretty confident of that. To exactly what extent, I'm not sure, and we don't have control of that. But I would say that they're gonna try to mitigate, if you wanna say that, and try to improve that intersection to the best of their abilities,
So,
They're not gonna make them put a roundabout in,
Could they?
so you knew where I was going. I guess the question would be, there would be things that they press upon the development side of it, right? Would they then also look at their own responsibility to reducing the hazard that's being driven by the development?
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be not just improvements to the roadway, it could be something to do with the signalization at the intersection there. I moved out here in 1995, and at the time, Drainer Road just had one, if you're heading westbound to M24, it just had one lane to turn on to M24. Well, now it's got two lanes that turn on to M24 there, and I've seen changes in the signals and things, so it is it is a quite hazardous intersection. They've tried to do what they can. Unfortunately, unless they were to, MDOT or Road Commission were to acquire those properties around there, there's really not much more they can do. They're just running out of space in terms of turning movements, I guess it is. But does that answer your question, hopefully?
Yep, I think you
Okay.
answered it very well, thank you.
Anybody else?
Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
All right, then what we will do is just kind of going through, we're gonna do number one, presentation by the petitioner. Once that is complete, we will then open up public hearing, get feedback from the public. Once that is done, we will close the public hearing. We'll take any last comments from the township consultants and staff, review any correspondence that may or may not have come in. We'll have a discussion and discuss the motion and vote on the topic at hand. So with that,
Something magical I need to do to make this present. Plugged in.
Yeah.
What's the magic? Sorry about
Well, you're fine. No, you're plugged in.
that. Right.
Is it a function F8?
There we go. Good evening, Jim Butler, PEA Group, address is 1849 Pond Run, Auburn Hills, Michigan, 48326. I'm civil engineering consultant for the applicant. He's the owner of the two lots, Drainer Development LLC. As Mateo and Jim has spoken, we're here this evening requesting rezoning of 970 and 990 South Pier Road from office to BC2. Site is contained of two separate parcels. First parcel being about 1.3 acres, which is right on a hard corner of Drainer and Lapeer Road. And then there's a 0.45 acre site immediately to the north that contains 0.45 acres. So total in sum, it's 1.76 acres. Irregularly shaped piece of property. As Mateo pointed out, obviously the zoning map of the township speaks to this being currently zoned office. As you can see, the diagram to the right depicts the red zoning designations, which are the sites surrounded by commercial. The intent of the developer, should he be successful with the commercial rezoning, would be the construction of a single-story retail building. It would combine the two parcels because obviously one can be developed without the other, so we're going to combine them together. So we don't have any objection to that being completed. As related to traffic, we took the initiative to have a preliminary traffic study completed. We went to MDOT, Michigan Department of Transportation, and RCOC, and asked them for what we call scope of work. What do you want us to study? Tell us exactly what you want to study, and we'll go study it. And we did study that. And obviously, the site is challenging. I'm an Oxford Township resident. I've lived here 20 years. I've driven through this intersection more than I care to admit. And yes, it's a challenging site. And the results of that study is they are going to limit access onto Drainer Road to one connection. And then, as you could probably imagine, if you're thinking that we're going to make a left-hand turn or a left-hand turn going north out of there, or a turn going into it, it's not going to happen. That access point onto Lapeer Road will most likely be a right in and a right out for that intersection. We have not gone and submitted a plan yet to them, but they gave us a scope of work. The results of the study are we will have to make an improvement onto Drainer Road. We'll have to extend the left turn lane past our entry point onto Drainer Road, and then there'll be a taper lane on Drainer. That's what the results of the study are. So, is related to the study, related to the traffic, there's going to be improvements. There's some signalization requirements they're talking about, some optimization. So that will also be included with that. I think Mateo did a really good job going through all the requirements of the rezoning criteria. You know, site is zoned office. It has a commercial bank building on it that's been vacant for many years. The site to the north is probably the last home that's for rent, and it is currently for rent. All the other office uses along there are homes are for single story office. To put an office there, I don't see with the new office building being constructed in that location. I'm not necessarily sure it's viable. Even before the pandemic, I've been doing this for 38 years. We are not seeing a lot of speculative type office being developed in metropolitan Detroit. There's a glut of office space available. Yeah, people are coming back to work. My own company, we have probably 20% of our staff still works remotely. So I think there's still gonna be somewhat of a hybrid, but I don't know if there's really a demand, especially in Oxford, for a small office on that hard corner. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Do you have a question?
Sure.
Yep.
The residential lot, the residential lot, to the west of the development, I think you get the general idea, the one immediately, kind of surrounded by it. What kind of things can be done to help lessen the impact of this rezone to that residential?
So you are talking, that one right there. Yep,
This lot right here?
Yep.
Because just to make sure I'm clear, this is
Yep.
the,
you got it.
so this person here, whoever owns this lot.
Yep.
Is it residential, I would
It's a
assume?
residentially zoned lot.
And I just wanna make sure that, we don't have an impact, or we lessen the impact, or maybe even improve would be better yet to that neighbor. I'm sure they don't like to have a vacant bank next to them. And I just wanna make sure we're looking out for our
Absolutely.
neighbors when we do a development like this.
Well, your ordinance under the C2 and C1 and C2, there's a requirement for a 20-foot greenbelt buffer. So we would be required to have a buffer around the officially zoned parcel to the north, and then the single family would also have a 20-foot buffer, a screen buffer. As you could imagine, this building is going to be parallel and facing Lapeer Road because of the geometrics of the property. It won't fit realistically if you turn and face it on Drainer Road. So definitely that corner piece, the triangular shaped piece, will probably most likely be parking in that area. Most of the bulk of the parking for this development will occur along Lapeer and portions of Drainer Road.
Okay.
In the back, I would envision, like I said, we've done a conceptual plan for it. And really along that common property line with the residential would essentially just be the drive-through lane. There's just not enough room to put any parking back there. It all wants to be on the frontage to Lapeer. So I think your ordinance does a pretty good job with the requirements that are there. I know there's screening requirements, opacity requirements, but the 20-foot buffer, we can do a lot of that screening. And I know that was a concern. If you look at the dispensary, it's not open, but the dispensary that we had on the old McDonald's site, that was a concern. They have their own screen wall in there, but we also reinforce that with landscaping. So there's 20-foot buffer there.
What do you envision for the corner? And maybe I might be going off a little bit off of the C2 discussion. Mr. Chair, should I stay?
No,
on
you're
that?
good, go ahead.
I'm thinking about, this is kind of the gateway to our community. And as people are driving up, what do you envision them seeing as they go up 24 in this direction?
There'll be, because of the odd geometrics of the site, I'm envisioning that there's going to be probably a very nice green belted area with a sign, is my vision for that area.
Excellent. Thank you.
And just so that you know, the applicant is they're the leasee of Uncle Boopa's. They run that development. They lease that from Jose. They also own the gas station in downtown Lake Orion where the Dunkin' Donuts is. That's their development. We're working on Oxford State Bank in front of Myers down in Lower Oxford, Lake Orion.
You're right.
So they're redeveloping that. They do high quality development. This will be from an architectural standpoint, it's gonna be very contemporary. But it'll match as far as materiality of what was across the street, the Oxford Marketplace. where the override aid is and
Okay.
the strip center is. So from that standpoint, they do, again, really high quality stuff.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Maybe this might be more for Mateo, but would we be able to limit the building on this, if this were zone C2, would we be able to limit the building to be a single-story building?
No, C2 height is probably, I want to say 30 feet, 35 feet. So you could get 2 stories out of a C2 development there.
At least 2 stories?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the issue obviously with the volume, right? Yeah, the parking.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking about, you know, there's a lot of single-family homes there to the northwest and southwest as well. So even if we want a big hulking building potentially ending up over there,
It's 2 stories or 35 feet.
35. Okay.
Yeah, and again, you know, in the construction world, to build a 2-story building, there's a lot that goes into it, a lot more cost. We just don't have the square footage to really support that
Probably or park
in the
it.
parking.
I was gonna say or park it.
Any more questions? The only one that I had, and I know traffic keeps coming up, but I'll kind of maybe go at it a different direction. What do you see, and I know we don't know exactly what's going in there, just the C2 building. Is this something that's gonna draw more traffic, or is it just mitigating the traffic that's there that might be turning into it? Because personally, I don't see this as, oh, hey, we're gonna see another 2, 3, 4,000 cars a day because of what we put there, but it's, you know, making the turn, how do we mitigate that? Do you really see a big increase or change in the traffic because of whatever goes in here?
I mean, usually you'll see an increase in traffic if you have something that's a destination, right, where people are coming from elsewhere to here. A lot of the traffic that's generated, the trips, the
Mhm.
daily trips on developments like this, is what's called passerby traffic. It's people who are already in the network, say, hey, I want to go here, I want to go do this. I don't think you're going to see a significant increase in traffic generated more trips, more people coming into the network because of this.
And that's what I was thinking, but I wanted some clarification.
Thank you.
Any more questions before we?
I just have a comment. Thanks for the clarification on what's pending to go there. That
Yeah.
definitely helps. Thanks.
Okay. I think we're good. We'll,
Commissioner Bailey, can I address the podium for a quick second?
maybe 2.
Flip a, yeah, thank you. No, I just wanted, there were some questions asked, I couldn't answer them right here, but I can answer them now. Medical is permitted in office currently, and the future land use designation of mixed use contemplates commercial, retail, office and residential on the site in kind of any mixture of uses.
Yeah.
Just one.
Okay. With that, I'll take a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is open at 19:14. We will open up for public testimony. Just to kind of go through the rules for anybody that may wish to speak. Any members of the public wishing to address the commission during the public hearing, give their name, address, and position on the issue under discussion. You will have 3 minutes to discuss whatever it is you would like. All speakers will direct their questions, comments to the chair only. No person will be permitted to speak twice on the same issue unless everybody wishing to be heard has had a chance to speak. No person other than the commission member, township consultant, or staff will be allowed to be addressed during public hearing. So with that, I will take any questions from anyone in the public that wishes to speak on this. Okay, seeing none, I guess we'll take a motion to close public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed at 19:16. I guess we will start with any last comments from the consultants or team?
I have none.
Nothing? Okay,
I guess I take that, just one last, well, sorry, just for a second. Again, a lot of like great questions, healthy conversation about what potentially could go there. Your determination tonight is C2 over office, just,
okay. I guess number 7, commission discussion. I guess we can open it up. Any topic, any concerns, any last questions you'd like addressed?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
So in light of Mateo's clarification, I'm gonna defer to the Oxford residents, favoring more retail space in the township.
Any discussion? I personally would like to see something go in. I agree with more retail. I know anytime you even mention the word drainer, the topic of traffic comes up. In this case, at first I was a little concerned, but the more I look at it, the more I think about it. I don't see this as something that's gonna be drawing hundreds more cars that we're gonna have to deal with. It's the ones that might be turning in and out, and it'll just take some time to get used to and work with the road commission to make sure that's safe. I won't go into details about how I wish they would turn that into a roundabout, because I know I'm in the minority in Oxford, but I will leave that one alone.
But this is a point in time, and if we change the zoning, it opens the door to get the road commission and the state of Michigan to maybe look at the intersection and maybe do some things to try to help and improve it.
I would agree.
If we don't do anything zoning wise, we get what we've always got.
So this is a roundabout way of getting them to change the traffic is what I'm saying.
wow, that's good.
It's a possibility.
I would make a motion, if I could, just to keep the story.
Not have been conversation around that topic.
Yeah, good one. Keep the dad jokes going.
Hey, I don't have good jokes, I just got a lot of them.
So
Okay, any last questions, any
yeah,
any topics?
I'll comment that I would like to see something else go into that space as well. As an Oxford Township resident, I drive through that intersection wondering where we're gonna do something with that vacant property, especially as Don pointed out that it's the gateway into our community, and having a vacant property there isn't great. And with the Rite Aid across the street that's now vacant, this is welcome.
Okay.
I agree with Mark's comments.
I just want to thank them for actually being proactive and doing the study for the entranceway, so we know a little bit more, because that really helped my decision.
Thank you. All right, I guess with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve or deny the topic at hand.
Recommend to the township board.
Or to recommend to the township, yep.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a recommendation, I move to recommend approval of the zoning request for 790 and 990 South Lapeer Road, parcel numbers 0426353, 028, and 0426353, 029 from office district to C2 community business district, based on the findings of fact outlined in section 18.6 of the zoning ordinance, as set forth in the discussion of the planning commission on the record, which confirm that the request meets the eligibility requirements for rezoning.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any last discussions? Okay, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Blankenship,
Yes.
Dirk,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Volosik,
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes. Okay, motion carries to recommend to the township board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to 9B, zoning ordinance text amendments to update Article 2 with definitions relating to domestic pets and farm animals. Deleted definitions include exotic and wild animal. Item 2, Article 2 with definition to comply with the Child Care Licensing Act amendments of 2022. Amended definitions include child family daycare home and child group daycare home. Added definitions include private home and increased capacity. And Article 3, to make automobile convenience marts special land use in the I-1 light industrial and I-2 general industrial zone districts. It's all you, sir.
Okay, so the second item we have for tonight and another public hearing scheduled is for the text amendments proposed this evening that are in front of you that are animal definitions and the child care language are kind of carryovers from the ORC last year. The animal definitions, I believe, was born out of just a better way in which code enforcement and the township in general can categorize animals and make decisions accordingly as it relates to, there's certain that are permitted in the larger residential districts, there's some that are not permitted in the smaller districts. This was before my time on the ORC, so I might lean on Mr. Turner if there are questions. But animal definitions was meant for clarification on that. The child daycare facilities language, that was basically a reaction to the updating of the state law. The state has regulations that supersede local control over certain uses as it relates to home daycares and things of that nature. They updated the law, so what we're doing this evening with the language in front of you is just coming into conformance with what the state has said. And then the final one is allowing or making auto convenience marts special land uses in your industrial districts. Your industrial districts currently allow for gas stations, but not the convenient marts that are associated with them. The language is a little dated from the perspective that all gas stations nowadays are also convenience marts. And so the thought process there was to kind of clean up the ordinance and just make it more common sense for today's market. So with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have about the three text amendments in front of you this evening.
Any questions? I know we've talked about this quite a bit during ORC meetings, except today when I was not there.
That's why we approved it today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of these are really updates. The other thing is the definition of animals that are pets versus farm livestock has changed somewhat in the area. And so we have tried to bring that up to date, the wording and things that make sense. You know, there are in the township people that have pot-bellied pigs. You know, if you just use the word pig, are you talking about a pot-bellied pig or are you talking about a 400-pound pig? So we had tried to update things to make them more current with what we see is going on in the township. And also there was some discussion about horses. And under what was there, it could be misinterpreted that you could keep a horse in your house.
You can't.
And, well, I keep mine in my house. But, so we tried to change that wording and make it clearer and easier understood.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have one. Are there any gas stations at all within Oxford that do not have a market? So attached to them?
I guess to the extent that you want to define market, I would say probably not. I think most of yours do. There's one in Lake Orion, headed northbound on 24, that is like the old school, like the guy, the owner of the business or the employee there literally sits in a bubble with like their little speaker that they can talk to you through.
There's a Myers or something. Gas.
Yeah, just something for
Kroger.
Kroger, yes.
Myers gas station.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that,
That's right, that's an Orion.
that's what would be permitted in your industrial districts right now, but gas stations aren't built like that anymore.
So is the one on Myers, or the Myers one, is that out of compliance then?
The one at Meyer,
Yeah,
that is a convenience mart associated
it
with it.
does.
Yeah.
It does. Is it zoned I-1, I-2?
No, that's a commercial district.
Okay, so it's allowed under that? So the gas station is allowed under that?
Correct, like the auto, so they're two separate things, but ironically, they're kind of the same, but yes,
Yeah.
they are permitted under
Okay.
that. Or special land
Perfect.
uses.
All right.
Okay. And then to approve these, we have to go through a public hearing as well.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so we will go through the same steps. We just saw the presentation by the petitioner. So I will take a motion to open public hearing on this.
Motion to open public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will open the public hearing at 19:28. Anybody wishing to speak from the public? Seeing none, I guess we will take a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will close the public hearing at 19:28. Any last comments from the township consultants and team? All right, we'll move on to commissioner discussions. Any questions or things you want to bring up on the wording of those? Anything you agree with, don't agree with?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Can we define playful personalities on the domestic pets definitions?
I actually, it's funny because I recall the meeting. I can't, again, that was before my time, but I do recall that coming up in one of these. Mr. Turner, do you recall the conversation about playful, the use of that terminology in the ordinance? I mean,
Your horse is playful.
I guess I just asked because it's an ordinance, right? So what deems it to not be a playful personality can become somewhat of a contention. The lawyer got involved.
Yeah, how would you verify that?
I think some of that was wording that we took verbatim from the state requirements.
Okay.
as it relates to MCL 287291, yeah. Yeah, that could be, my apologies, it's off the top of my head, I can't state for sure that that's what it is, but it does reference the Michigan code there.
So it's a Michigan definition, it's not something we threw in there.
I can't definitively say yes or no, but that seems appropriate, given that it's cited in the definition.
I don't see that. I just object a little because it says a service animal pursuant to MCL 287.92.
Oh, the animal,
So
correct, yeah.
I don't think that that's in the necessarily Michigan.
The service animal
particular-
one, yeah.
So I just, you know, if we don't know, then I don't wanna leave us open to interpretation from an ordinance standpoint, right? If you have a pet and you get into a situation with a neighbor or something, and playful personality comes up, it's just, seems a little ambiguous to me, and I caution some.
And your actions this evening can be to table specific language and ask that it be brought back with certain revisions. So it's not a take it or leave it. If you table it because you'd like to see tweaks in the language here or there, we can work on that and bring it back to another public hearing. You know, you can recommend denial, you can table and have it come back to you, or you can recommend approval, because the township board is the official approving body for any text amendments.
Couldn't we recommend approval with text edits?
With the condition?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was a condition that those words be removed specifically,
Yep.
then yes, we could make that change and send it on to the board.
Yeah, speed up the process.
Okay. Any last questions or?
I guess I have one more.
Sure.
So, the language around was it auto marts, right? That's gonna help in case a new gas station with convenience center attached. This update will help move that along a little quicker, right?
It'll allow it in your industrial districts. We have fielded interest in those areas for this type of use.
Okay.
And your zoning ordinance as it is would permit the station under a special land use. So again, still gotta go through kind of a subjective review by the planning commission. But it would add the auto convenience mark to that special land use consideration.
Okay. Would that apply to the vacant gas station at Drainer 24 as well? Is that zone?
That's C2.
That's C2 already?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I guess if there's no more discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
All right, we'll take a cut at it. I see everyone else is just chomping at the bit. All right, so motion to approve the zoning ordinance text amendments to update, including Article 2 with definitions relating to domestic pets and farm animals, deleted definitions including exotic or wild, with the condition that the playful personalities text is removed.
And it's a recommendation to approve.
Recommendation to approve, okay. And then, recommendation also to approve the Article 2 with definitions to comply with Child Care Licensing Act amendments, 2022. Amended definitions include child family daycare home and child group daycare home. Added definitions include private home and increased capacity. And then the updates to Article 3 to make automotive convenience marts special land uses in the I-1 light industrial and I-2 general industrial districts.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? No? Can we get a roll call vote on that one as well?
Bailey?
Yes.
Blosher?
Yes?
Austin?
Yes.
Wagner?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes,
Dirk? Yes. Blankenship?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, we will move on to 9C, the added topic, appointment of Patty Durr to the ORC. Now, this isn't anything that requires a vote, it's just an appointment, correct?
You'll still need to vote on it, correct?
Okay, and you're still, after today's meeting, willing to go through that torture? Okay, With that, I will take a motion to appoint Patty Durr to the Ordinance Review Committee.
Motion to appoint Patty Durr to the Ordinance Review Committee?
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion?
Yes. What do we do about you? Do we make you an alternate now?
I am still the alternate, and I can only be there when one of you is
One
not,
of the three is
which,
absent.
like today, I didn't come because that would put four of us in the building, that's a quorum. So yes, I will stay as alternate.
Okay.
So I get time and a half when one of you doesn't show up, I guess.
Yes, that's something, at least.
Yeah.
Deduction.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
the IUU.
Roll call vote on that, please.
Blankenship,
Yes.
Durr,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes,
Austin,
Yes.
Polishek,
Yes.
Bailey.
Yes. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Okay, any unfinished business? We have none. New business, none. Any communication or committee reports? What about the economic development? We don't have anything going there. Ordinance review, update on your meeting today.
so let's have an update. So last night to the Township Board, we provided the ORC ordinance work plan, and motion was made at that point to fund the work plan. Now, there was quite a bit of discussion on the proposed ordinances, and the board had quite a number of issues with several of those items, including, but not exclusively, but to the woodlands traffic, the woodlands ordinance, the traffic impact and environmental impact ordinances, just to name a few. There was concern that some of the ordinances would really only impact a few. They weren't broad in nature from a community standpoint. They really want us to look at more impactful community-wide issues. They want to make things easier, not harder. As a result, the motion made to fund the ordinance failed. And so we've gone back and we started today to look at revising that ordinance work plan to something that's a little bit more palatable and something that we can accomplish this year with approval from the Township Board.
Okay. Any update on the plan, or is that something you're still working on?
It's something we started to work on today.
Okay,
And we have some ideas and we've got some actions to go look at a couple items, and we'll pull together a plan.
The big impact will come once we've got approval for the new master plan,
okay,
because that will drive work in the area of revising ordinances. So that will fill parts of the workload in that we don't know what they are today.
does any of that affect what we've already done and are close to being finished with the master plan?
No.
No.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. This is ordinance review board
Yes,
discussion, is that right? I was passionate about, a few months ago, about the woodlands discussion, and I'm pulling a comment out of the 2019 master plan about preserving existing tree rows and woodlands wherever possible, possibly through an amendment to the zoning ordinance, including tree protection and replacement standards. So I only want to mention that because we've come across a few developments lately where the developer basically had to, they clear cut, and some of the existing homes were looking at basically completely devastated areas. You know, maybe devastation is a bad word to use, if you know what I mean, but some of the people from the community that were here, use words like war zone, and I'm hoping that not to overcomplicate or make things more difficult through getting a development going, but that we can, that development can look at the existing people around them and take in consideration what they would be experiencing as that development happens. And this preserving existing tree rows, I think is potentially an opportunity to help with that without making those neighbors that are right adjacent to those new developments upset. So I hope that there's some opportunity maybe
So-
to still do something.
So I think there may be potentially some opportunity, but I think that's after approval of the master plan. And when we start looking at putting ordinances to that, there may be some opportunity to do some of what you're suggesting, for example.
Okay, thank you.
By itself, it was a non-starter with the board.
Yeah, I understand that in the past, it's a complicated thing to implement, and I know it's a difficult discussion. I think it's been discussed for some time. This is from 2019.
Yeah.
You know, no,
Yeah.
that was put in there some time ago, but it really resonated with me once I read this, and then as we've had some developments come our way over the years, recent years, I've been here for a year and a half, but, anyway, I just would,
Yeah. I mean,
look forward to seeing something that, we can do for our community to help preserve existing tree roads as developments happen around those.
and that opportunity may manifest itself within the design guidelines themselves, so there may be, when you need, start looking at what
Right.
ordinances it takes to implement those,
Buffers and things like that.
things like that,
Yeah.
it may fit into that, something like that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah,
No.
I'd like to second that comment, just because I come from a community that the tree was literally on the sign for the township that I came from. They cut all the trees down in the township for development. So there was a lot of consternation in the community about taking that tree off the sign, because it was more of like a show of we're upset because you took all of our trees and we're just taking off the sign kind of thing, so.
Yeah.
I think as we work through development in the township, which I think is welcome, to grow our community and make it better for the residents that are here, but preserving some of the natural aspects of northern Oakland County would be advantageous. So, I just wanted to add that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 13, planner and engineer reports.
You can go.
You do know he runs these meetings.
Yeah, I was gonna say, kind of took
Yeah.
that.
Guess I'm figuring that out. Again, in your packet, you should have a list of township municipal projects and the status of some of the private development projects that you guys have approved or are going through the pipeline. Just here to answer any questions on that if you have any.
Any questions?
That was
I
just a-
appreciate you putting that in the packet. It does help having that read ahead of time.
Yeah, keep you updated on, again, what's happening or some of the things that you've approved even to see where they're at, so. All right, just a roundabout way to get me up here.
Like how you're thinking there.
So for us, you all have in front of you a printed copy of the master plan with updates from the meeting from 2 weeks ago. I know that there's still a handful of comments out there that I've collected this evening from a few of you. So the goal is to have this on the agenda for the 27th, to have you vote to send it to the township board. Again, the last few comments that we've received, we'll do our best to get them in there, make those adjustments, present to you at the 27th meeting. Also at the 27th, we're planning an annual planning commission training session, so my firm and the township's legal counsel will be here with some presentations to kind of walk you through like the general ins and outs of being a planning commissioner, your authorities, your actions, how to make motions, all that fun stuff. I did want to try to gauge, there's been some comments about, the spring break and things like that. I want to make sure that we would have an appropriate quorum to take the step with the master plan. I know Commissioner Austin, you said that you will not be here on the 27th. Okay, are there any of the commissioners aware of any potential attendance conflicts? Again, life happens, but just trying to make sure that we have an appropriate quorum for you to make a recommendation, and it could be approve or denial of the master plan draft that's been worked on over the last year and a half.
And and I'm not opposed to canceling these spring break things, only because we're going the 29th.
Okay.
Sorry.
So you'll be here.
I'll be here for the 27th, and, you know, I think, you know, everybody should make it priority.
And to provide some context of how that would go is if you do vote to send it to the township board, they'll see it in April. That is kind of a goal that the township board has set to see this in April. So if we aren't able to take our vote on the 27th, that will not happen. But township board sees it. If they vote to then distribute it to the neighboring communities, the state law states that the township board or the approving authority at that time votes to have it distributed to your neighboring communities, utilities, railroads, a lot of different parties. And then they have the ability to comment it for 63 days. So it's kind of a waiting period for 63 days. After the 63 days, the planning commission can then hold a public hearing. If they choose, if you get comments back from the neighboring communities that you want to take into consideration, they can kind of go back to the drafting board and get incorporated. If not, then the planning commission would hold a public hearing after the 63 days, take in any last public comments, and then make a final recommendation to the board, which would then vote to adopt or reject the master plan. So if everything moves kind of next meeting to next meeting to next meeting, you're probably looking at adoption in July or August.
Okay.
So
So I think the message there is, I mean, obviously not to sway anybody to one way or the other, but between now and the 27th, I mean, spend some time looking through this. Anything that you want to pass on to Mateo, you know, get it to him as early as possible so that, you know, on the 27th, we're ready to move forward. If everything's been answered and everything's acceptable, except you.
Yeah, can I make a comment real quick?
Absolutely.
I did quite a few changes, but don't take that, you don't have to change that, that was just my recommendation, so.
no, I mean, Megan's been working on a lot. She's kind of been the heavy lift behind me on that project. So if there's any kind of, if we need any clarifications on what you propose, just to make sure we understand, we'll find you.
So I have a comment.
Sure.
Okay. So, can you kind of just address, I guess my concern is, I want to move this along on the 27th, as much as everybody else does. So in order to do that, with the understanding that the commission here will get their changes in quickly to you guys, so that maybe we can get a turnaround, since we won't have a meeting before then, to be able to have everybody review it one last time once the final draft is ready to go. And then that way, if there's any objections, anything that's been put in there, because I noticed that every time something gets added or the wording, and, you know, there seems to be a lot of conversation around that, right? So I just don't want to get to the 27th and somebody comes to the meeting and says, I haven't seen this yet, or whatever, right? There's some late ads, and now we're not able to vote on it to recommend it to the township board. So can you just address how we can maybe do that so that we can get it done in time? Have
Yeah.
everybody review it beforehand.
So we have to have the board packets finalized the Thursday before the meeting. So in essence, the packet for 2 weeks from now will go out next Thursday. I know that there's again some potential for some last minute tweaks here and there. I believe I will talk with Megan about it, and I can follow up an email as well to best answer your question about how we can do that. If it's possible, we could present whatever last minute edits go in as a red line to the full document that you have, and you're able to kind of see what those are. And if those, we'll label them as minor tweaks, are acceptable, then, you know, you can vote on the red line as the draft that you want to send to the township board, and we can clean it up between now and then. Or if those red lines spark enough conversation that bring you concern, you don't have to vote to send it to the township board on the 27th.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm just trying to avoid that due to that particular reason, right? So I don't know if it's something that when these comments are being made, that everybody can be emailed on them, so if there's any objection, then right away, people can ask questions or get clarification or whatever. Because as current, right, I don't know that everybody on the commission has seen the additions that have been sent to you, other than we got the new copy tonight, right? So we had to wait until tonight to get that. I'm just trying to avoid that for the next meeting, right? So if it's possible to get, you know, in time enough that there'll be more or less agreement on the language by the time we get to that meeting. Seeing as how we're trying to create a deadline here to get this completed, right?
So let's do this, because I don't want to get ahead of offering.
Multiple copies.
Well, I don't want to offer something I can't deliver. I'll leave it at this for now. If there are, we've collected your comments. Don, I think you were
I'm trying to put some.
correct.
Yeah, I just have a few things I wanna make sure are incorporated, but, and when I say make sure, it's my recommendation to add, that's all.
And I know that the memo that was included in the pack, or with the printed copy, highlights what we were able to get to and what we're still updating. I'll offer up tonight that if I have every last comment that you'd like to provide by noon Monday, that we can turn that around to be in the packet that you received the week before the 27th. And then you've got it all in front of you in time to prep for the meeting. If there's an issue with meeting that turnaround, I will follow up with an email tomorrow.
And one thing.
Am I addressing the concern that you're having?
Yeah, you're definitely addressing it. I just hopeful that it'll prevent the lack of being able to vote.
Sure, and one thing that I will say is if you have questions when Mateo sends the packet out, if you have something or questions you want to address, reply to him, don't hit reply all, because technically that becomes a meeting, it's an Open Meetings Act violation. You can copy me on, but the minute that more than 3 people are on that email, it's a quorum, it's a violation. So if you want to copy me on and send questions to Mateo back and forth, that's fine. Just don't hit reply all.
My apologies, that's a fair clarification.
Great job. Good to know. So thank you.
You had one this week?
Yeah, thank you, you clarified, and I was going to try to build off what Mark said. I could have, if I have comments, could I take those comments, maybe reference the section I'd like to see them potentially
Sure.
put in, edit, put your name on it, Mateo, and then by Monday noon.
Right.
Okay.
Just make sure it's not a reply
Right.
all.
Yep.
Thank you. And that goes for text messages or anything.
And again, I have a meeting tomorrow with the folks working on this. If what I've offered up this evening is not feasible, I will communicate tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Anything else? All right, with that, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.